7/31 on January 18th, 2023. It's the Inland Wetlands Agency. First time on the agenda this evening under new business is David Edwards, 35 Indian Trail Road, application for Eagle Scout project to build a bridge. If you want to come on up, just sign your name, and then you can just give us a short description of what you're looking to do.
Hi, my name is David Edwards, and I'm a Boy Scout at Troop 63 in Woodbridge, and I am planning to build a bridge on 35 Indian Trail Road.
I guess before you get too far, I guess the first order of business is looking for a waiver of the application fee, which we typically do on these kind of community projects. Do we have a motion to waive the application fee? Jack moved, Steven seconded.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, that part's out of the way. I'm sorry, you can continue now.
All right, so I will be building this bridge to my project will be building a bridge and walk. It will include a main bridge over the water and will include 2 walking plank sides on either side of the bridge. There will be 2 walking planks because the area is pretty swampy. So
Based on your drawing, it looks like it's the plank area is about 10 inches wide and the bridge itself is 12 feet long, and it's hard to say.
3 feet wide.
Yeah, I guess 3 feet wide, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So what we've had approved a number of these in the past, and typically what we do is, you have your sketch, and then Chris, as Wetlands Enforcement Officer, comes out and sort of gives you suggestions as to how to place it. I see you have it placed on rocks that I assume are there, or you'll move there. And then what you should do is meet with Chris before you plan to do it, go out there with her, and then she'll make any adjustments based on field conditions, and then give you some advice as to what the best way to approach it is. Typically, Chris, how much notice do you need to get for this? Not much.
Would prefer not to do it on a rainy day.
Okay, that makes sense. So, the only thing is, the way this works here, if there's any activity that's actually in a wetlands, which this would be, we can't approve it tonight, so we have to wait 30 days before we approve it. So we'll be able to deal with the application next month when we meet. But other than that, I don't know. Do you have any suggestions on
No,
process or materials?
If I go out in the field before he starts construction,
Yeah.
it should be fine.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or?
Yeah, Mr. Edwards?
Yeah.
I just wanted to compliment you on a neatly prepared application and cover letter that explained what you wanted to do. I thought your drawing was clear and informative. Good job.
thank you.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Good, Josh.
Yes.
How did you choose the width of the walkway as opposed to, the bridge is 3 feet wide, but the walkway is 10 inches wide according to the sketch. It seems like it's much narrower than the bridge. Is that correct?
So, my plan, we're putting it's planks instead of the original bridge. We're gonna do like 2 planks. I don't really know why it's so much shorter. I think just had 2. There's no.
Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Is it 2 10-inch wide
It
planks?
says, it says
That's
10
right.
inches wide, but maybe it means each plank or something like that. I'm just looking at the picture, I don't know.
Well, I think sometimes when I've been hiking, when it's just a boardwalk over wet areas, it doesn't have to be very wide. You just need it wide enough for your feet to go along. Whereas a bridge, you tend
Well,
to stand on.
this is 10 inches, that's not very wide.
Yeah, I guess not.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah, it is,
per foot.
it is
Each
two
plank.
10-inch, each
Ah.
plank.
Yeah,
Oh, then I
It's
understand.
gonna be 10
Yeah, I'm
inches,
just
yeah.
reading,
That's
Yeah.
the drawing
I read
depiction.
drawings, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Fine, fine, fine.
Yeah,
And it's gonna be mounted on, what, 4x4s? What's on?
yeah, that's under the bridge. We're gonna have 4x4s to level it.
You know, I've hiked the Blue Trail through town, and this section, this area sorely needs this bridge.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, we'll let him, outside, wait. Go ahead, Jeff.
The bridge is a 12-foot span, and it looks like it's just mounted on 4x4s at each end. Are you gonna put something, oh, it's over water, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget it, yeah, it's over water.
Anything else? Okay, all right, thank you for coming in. Next month, I don't think anybody's gonna have any questions, so you probably don't have to come back. Just check with Chris just in case something comes up between now and next month. Otherwise, it's a pretty routine approval that we give next month.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Next item on the agenda, Town of Woodbridge, 100 Center Road, construction of expanded foundation to existing storage garage foundation at the firehouse. Beth, do you want to start? Okay. Oh, again, because we're not making much money this evening, but based on the fact that it's a town project, we typically don't require the town to pay us to put back in the town. So, therefore,
could do
we just need a motion to waive the application fee.
I'd like to move to waive the application fee in this
Stephen moved.
application.
Second, Jack seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay. No application fee.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. My name is Beth Heller. I live at 6 Hunters Ridge in Woodbridge. I'm here on behalf of the town of Woodbridge. I want to say good evening to all the members of the Inland Wetlands Commission and Christine Sullivan and others in the attendance this evening. Within the past 2 years, our town has received close to $6 million in federal and state grants for improvements in our town center. These monies include funding for renovation of both of our senior center and center gymnasium, a connectivity project for new sidewalks, American Rescue Plan Act funding, and most importantly, relevant to this evening, $2 million to renovate the old firehouse building at 4 Newton Road, which until now has been used only for fire department storage. By way of somewhat of a short history, the old firehouse was built in 1938. Several additions were built on as the fire department response requirements increased and changed over the years. This building, which was already overflowing with apparatus and equipment, served as a fire station for the town of Woodbridge until 2006, when a fire at that building rendered the building unusable for fire response and temporary trailers were utilized. Several large pieces of response apparatus had to be stored outside. The Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department maintains and operates all apparatus and equipment for 24/7, 365 response, as they have done for 94 years. With the new fire station at 100 Center Road was completed in 2008, it was known that the 20,000 square foot building would not be adequate to house all the equipment and apparatus, and the fire department was to continue temporarily occupy all 3 bays at the old firehouse at 4 Newton Road. It was also contemplated by the then Board of Selectmen that in order to provide access for firefighters to the pieces of equipment and for the safety of these firefighters, the items temporarily housed at the old firehouse should be relocated to a to-be-built shed at the rear of the new firehouse. As I was a member of the Board of Selectmen at that time, I recall the board reached this decision after much discussion and investigation of possible alternative sites. In 2010, an approximately 800 square foot foundational pad was approved and installed in 2011 to provide the base for the new storage shed. This pad needs to be expanded. The fire chief is able to speak to the need for expansion of the foundation pad, as he is the expert on fire department operations. Last year, the town of Woodbridge received, as I said, a $2 million grant from the state of Connecticut to convert the old firehouse into a cultural and community center. A building committee for this very exciting project has been appointed and has been working diligently toward its creation. This new center will be available for use by all town residents and will house multi-purpose spaces, an ADA elevator, a kitchenette, and a cafe is also being contemplated. In order for this to come to fruition, the apparatus and equipment stored at the old firehouse must be moved to a new storage shed. I'm here tonight to request approval of expansion of the foundational pad so the town of Woodbridge might convert this beautiful building's existence as a storage shed to a new multi-purpose gateway to the center of the town of Woodbridge for use by us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have COVID at town hall, so that's why I'm sorry. It's driving me crazy. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. For the record, I'm Donald Smith Jr., professional engineer with an office at 56 Greenwood Circle in Seymour, and I'm here tonight representing the town of Woodbridge on this project. And I think everybody's familiar with the property and the parcel, but Woodbridge Fire Station, obviously 100 Center Road, part of the Fitzgerald tract, right, the 130-acre parcel for the Fitzgerald tract. The 130 acres where the Fitzgerald tract is here. The existing fire station and the shed, the existing shed foundation that was constructed behind the foundation, or behind the fire station, and then the proposed addition to the shed. Let me just go to this, and it's kind of a little bit easier to see with some color on it. But so the proposed project entails the construction of a 2,000 square foot, 2019 square foot foundation adjacent to the existing foundation behind the firehouse, and then construction of a 3,825 square foot building on top of both of those sheds. There would be a little bit of additional impervious driveway as part of the project in order to access the overhead doors, but just this little triangle piece of additional pavement. The project increases the impervious area of the firehouse site by about 2,500 square feet, or 4% of that firehouse site. Behind the firehouse, there's about a 60,000 square foot wetland area, and that's what we are right up against. The proposed shed foundation encroaches into that, and we have a direct wetland impact of 1,600, a direct wetland impact of a little over 1,600 square feet in this triangular area here. And as part of the project, we have a 1,700 square foot mitigation area that we are proposing to construct adjacent to the wetlands. And basically our intention is to go into that upland soil, excavate down approximately 2 feet, which would put us about a foot below the wetland soil surface, and then we will bring about a foot of topsoil back in, so that the area, the recreated area, is essentially the same elevation as the adjoining wetlands. We had some original discussion about salvaging and reusing the existing topsoil from the wetlands area, and our biologist will speak to that in a few minutes, but generally the thought was that that would probably contain some invasive speeds and roots and things, and think that it's better that we take that and move that completely out, bring in some clean, fresh topsoil with our plantings, and we think that would be a better way to conduct this rather than potentially try and use that existing topsoil. But, you know, we're proposing a 1,700 square foot mitigation area, and that's this little bit of an olive color in here. And then adjacent to that, there was about another 1,700 square feet of upland area that we're gonna plant. Basically, we're using that to access the area to create the wetlands, and then on our way out, we'll provide some additional plantings for that. The planting plan for that is in your packet. It's part of the report from Jen Benno. So let me introduce Jen and let her speak to the wetlands.
Do you want to go first?
You're gonna need a public hearing on this, I believe, because this is clearly a significant activity. And so I don't know that at this point, I mean, you can listen to this twice, but if you're gonna have a public hearing, you're gonna have to hear it yet again, because anything that's said before the public hearing can't be used as part of the hearing record. You'd have to hear it again. So as much as the experts are here,
Okay. I do have one question, though. Is there anything contemplated as far as, like, exits out the back or sides of the shed, or everything going out the front onto the pavement area?
Everything would be out the front. Overhead doors out the front. I understand Christine's point, but I think we would like to have Jen at least give an overview of her report, because she has the expert, in her opinion, that this project, taken as a whole, with the mitigation area and the replantings, does not constitute a significant impact to the wetlands. Certainly, that's our opinion, that's her professional opinion. You folks, as the Wetland Commission, certainly have that right, but
Well, since she's here, we might as well hear what she has to say, and then we can figure it out. So.
agreed. Thank you.
I'm going to just interject first. David Stein, Silver, Petroselli and Associates, we're the architect of record. Just to clarify, in terms of the means of egress, we will be required to have 2 man doors or exit doors, which will be located on the back. On the sides, there will be nothing to the back of the wetlands. It's required by code because it's still an occupied building, and those overhead doors don't serve as a required means of egress. But based on the width of the building, we are required to have two exit doors that will just discharge out in terms of just means of egress. So I wanted to clarify that.
can you please sign in when you get a time?
I will, absolutely.
Whereabouts with those?
So you can see the exit directly here, and then there would be one right here. So right at that front entry, there needs to be 2 means of egress per the code. So.
Will there be a structure or a concrete pad outside of that door?
There would be a concrete landing outside of that door, yes.
But the land outside those doors, is that grade at this point, where we'll be at the grade where the door exits?
The area to the south, right, is already, the area to the west, on the existing shed is already paved, and the room there, the existing concrete apron wraps around the side, so that door would open up onto that. The sidewalk of this apron would be to extend it on the corner. I'm sorry.
Josh? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Jen Benno, biologist with Soil Science Environmental Services. Our office is in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and I've been with the firm since 1994. So I think I've seen a couple of you before. I can do that here, I guess. I like the chair, so I'm going to sit. I inspected the proposed shed project area on December 9th, 2022, and again on January 7th, 2023. The inspections were basically just to get an idea of the existing conditions, so your dominant vegetation and wildlife within the wetlands and adjacent to the wetlands in the project area, and generally get a sense of what the primary wetland functions are. As Don mentioned, the proposed shed project area is located in a fairly highly disturbed area. The firehouse is there, there's paved driveways and parking areas, there's already the existing shed pad. There's a enclosed garbage container, storage tank. What I'm doing is I'm going through my report right now, so I'm just gonna review that real quick. And in the report on page 3, you can see what's existing. There's photos there, so you can see what's existing conditions. Vegetation within the upland review area, right adjacent to the wetland, includes white pine, black cherry, staghorn sumac, privet, multiflora rose, Japanese barberry, raspberry, bittersweet, mugwort, Japanese knotweed, and grape. So in 1999, soil scientists with our firm delineated the wetlands on the property in association with the firehouse project. Scott Stevens, registered professional soil scientist with our firm, went back on December 9th, 2022 in order to redelineate the wetland boundary in the area of the shed project. And that is under a separate cover, which you should have also in the packet. So the wetland adjacent to the shed project area is dominated by a palustrine forested, or what we call PFO, wetland area. Continues out of the project area to the south and west. Also has kind of like a little stony surface, and it slopes gently down to the west. No groundwater seepage or standing water was observed within the wetland during the inspections, and no intermittent or perennial watercourses are associated with the wetland within the project area or near the project area. We did observe there's a drainage swale that intercepts water from the fields and the walking trail up to the east, and it brings the water down into this wetland. It was just designated as a drainage swale because there's generally no flow. We didn't see any flow during either of our inspections. And that's, I think, near our flag, redelineation flag number 21. So a little portion of the proposed shed project area has already been cleared, and wood chips have been placed in the wetland and adjacent to the wetland. Vegetation within the remainder of the wetland near the project area provides dense tree canopy cover and dense to moderate or to very dense shrub and herbaceous understory growth. The dominant vegetations, generally red cedar, elm, red maple, sugar maple, black cherry, privet, spice bush, greenbrier, multiflora rose, Japanese honeysuckle, garlic mustard, poison ivy, and bittersweet and grape. Several of those plant species are considered to be invasive in the state of Connecticut. That would be privet, multiflora rose, Japanese honeysuckle, garlic mustard, and bittersweet. Primary functions of this wetland area include groundwater discharge, flood flow alteration, because it is in the upper portion of the watershed. So it would be providing that function, which is important. Sediment and nutrient retention or removal, which is kind of moderate because there's no source right now, and also wildlife habitat. Function and value form was completed for this wetland, and it just gives you an overview of the functions we're looking at and how we come to decide which one is more prevalent or primary than other ones. Let's see, page 6 of the report just gives you existing conditions map. Page 7 is pictures of the wetland when we were out there on the 7th. The pink flags indicate the wetland delineation, so the wetland boundary is the pink flags. We observed some really common wildlife out there during the 2 inspections. We observed deer, scat, house wrens, and some goldfinches. As part of the project review, we also looked at the Natural Diversity Database Division December 2022 map for the area, and that would include any endangered, threatened, special concern species or critical habitat that is known to occur in the project area or in the vicinity of the project area. There's nothing indicated on the map. The map is included with Appendix 2 of the report. And as Don mentioned, there's going to be about 1,614 square feet of direct impact to the wetland in the vicinity of the existing dumpster enclosure and the concrete shed pad. As I mentioned, vegetation was previously cleared and wood chips were deposited in a portion of that wetland impact area. So then the vegetation would need to be removed from the remainder of the impact area. The area would then be filled and graded for the construction of the storage shed. So potential impacts that could result from clearing within the wetland area and within the upland review area could include human intrusion into the wetlands and also increased sunlight to the wetlands, which could lead to increased invasive species plant growth. So generally to reduce those potential impacts, we recommend buffer plantings like trees or shrubs would be native, non-invasive stuff in that area. And also, as Don mentioned, the applicant town is proposing to create wetlands to the east of the existing wetland boundary. And the intent is to, over time, create a pedestrian forested wetland, which would replace the wetland that will be impacted. So we're replacing in kind eventually. Doesn't happen overnight. Don mentioned again the topsoil. We recommend clean topsoil be brought in there because there are a lot of invasive species in the wetland and adjacent to the wetland. Let's see. So if you look at page 11 of the report, it just indicates where I have specific plantings within the wetland creation area and the buffer restoration area. We're recommending native, non-invasive shrubs and trees in the wetland. And they include winterberry, spicebush, arrowwood for shrubs, and then red maple and pin oak for trees. So that is to really increase the species diversity in that portion of the wetland. We're going to try to get rid of some of those invasive species. Let's see. Once the trees and shrubs have been installed, we recommend a wetland creation, in the wetland creation area, the New England wet mix. So it's a seed mixture of native, non-invasive species be spread over the area. And that's basically to provide additional habitat and to stabilize the soils. With the recommended buffer plantings, you can also see on the sketch map, page 11, those would include shadbush, gray dogwood, American hazelnut. The trees would be flowering dogwood and red oak. Again, we're trying to just increase the diversity in that area of the site. I should note that species substitution may be necessary. I've found on other jobs it has been necessary sometimes because of lack of availability of certain species. Species substitution should occur only if, like, the design team and town staff, approve that. And we are also recommending a conservation seed mixture, again with native non-invasive species for the buffer restoration area if it's necessary, if there's bare soils. So yeah, after inspecting the project area, reviewing the plan sheets, it's our professional opinion that there will be no significant adverse impact to the functions provided by that wetland area. If the project is developed in accordance with the reviewed plans, the wetland creation area is successfully installed and created. erosion and sedimentation control measures approved by the town of Woodbridge are properly installed and maintained during the duration of the project. So we have a few recommendations. Basically, we would recommend that annually invasive species be removed from the planting areas. And there could be some volunteer vegetation that gets very tall over the shrub plantings, and that should be cut down, at least from around the plantings. We recommend they leave they don't cut vegetation beyond 5 feet of the shed. We also recommend that they install some sort of visual demarcation. Could be a split rail fence, which they have along the outer edge of the fire pit area. So we recommend that they would continue that around the back of the shed. And that is basically to give you a visual demarcation and say, yeah, don't go any further than this. You know, other possibilities could be large stones, or you could do placards on posts, something like that.
Yeah, the fence has some history, so.
So whatever, you know, as long as there's something that says, don't go in here, we're good with it. I already mentioned that. And then finally, our last recommendation would be to have a biologist or somebody qualified go out there and really inspect the plantings within the wetland creation area and the buffer restoration area. And that would just be to get a baseline so we know, you know, the vigor and the health of these things, make sure they're planted correctly, not upside down or something like that. And then we would recommend subsequent inspections, maybe 3 years, I'm not sure. That seems to be the general consensus among other towns we work in. Some towns do once a year, some towns do twice a year. And that would just be to document the success of the plantings, also to document any concerns we would have for soil stabilization or invasive species. And then I think the final thing in there is if the mortality is greater than 15%, then we recommend replanting. So I think that's all I have. It's probably longer than you wanted, but
No, I appreciate it. Good to hear one. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Stephen, you usually look like you do, so.
I just have a construction question, I guess. I don't know how much farther we're gonna go with the application, so I don't know to what extent you wanna entertain questions.
Well, I think we should learn as much as we can tonight and just decide whether it needs a public hearing or not, and then so if we learn things twice, it's not gonna hurt, so.
Fine. So just, my suggestion would be we have some kind of a maintenance plan with regard to the silt fence and hay bales, because the construction is in such proximity to the wetland, and then we have a drop-off too. So if we could just make sure that after rain events, maybe somebody gets out there to take a look to see that there's been no failures or breaches, which would allow construction material or something like that even to be washed into the wetlands, because it's all going to be, that's a funnel area from the parking lot to the north of it. Footnote to it all. Thank you.
I'm interested to know, you mentioned that there was wood chips that have been placed in what was wetlands?
still is.
Yeah.
There's still,
They didn't put that many in there.
they didn't put
It
that
still
many in
is.
there, okay. Was that part of the project to put the other foundation in?
It's in the location where the foundation will be, yes.
Yeah, Gene, if you see, well, on one of the maps here, you can see if you look through it, that there's one area to the left of the current foundation where they want to, yeah.
It's somewhere in here.
Yeah.
And it's part of the area that they're looking to put the new slab in.
Okay,
Yeah, if you look on page 6 of my report, it gives existing conditions, there's a little
yeah,
thing
well,
that says wood chips on there.
That was part of the violation.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jean's question is, why are they there?
They're there, you know.
it's there, and I guess, it would be good if the plan carefully stipulates what can be done in the areas around where work is done, so that wood chips don't end up in more water.
Yes,
Course
and,
areas.
and that's kind of the idea of the visual demarcation. Yeah.
Any other questions right now, or Don, do you have something? you want to
Yeah,
add?
let me just follow up with what Jen had said. On the site plan, it shows up, we have about 140 feet of relocated and new split rail fence. Basically starting up in there, the fire pits coming over, down, and around the back of the shed, so that we're gonna carry that split rail fence probably 4 or 5 feet off of the building. Obviously, we wanna have a walkway around the building for maintenance and that kind of thing, but then right beyond that, we would put that split rail fence. Again, it's a visual line of demarcation. They physically have to know that they're throwing something over it. But, so that's, we have provided that demarcation around. And then also, it was noted, yes, we provided on the erosion control plan, not only a line of silt fence, but we backed that up with hay bales for that extra protection. And then in the erosion control notes, the contractor is assigned responsibility to inspect those erosion control measures, basically weekly and after significant rain events. So it's.
I didn't see that, I didn't see the periodic nature of those inspections in the note, so, yes.
It's there, and it's an enforcement thing, but we've taken that extra step to back the silt fence up with hay bales to provide that extra protection and make it a little bit more robust. There's not a lot of overland flow, especially behind the building. We're certainly not gonna see a lot of overland flow in this area. We're trying to protect the remaining little finger of wetlands, so we kind of box that in with silt fence, so we're trying to protect that, but there's not a lot of runoff entering the area, so it should not be a high erosion potential for this site.
Maybe I'm confused by an earlier discussion we had. The back of the slab, though, is that current, in the back, let me just phrase this right. When the new slab is constructed, what's that elevation versus the ground to the rear of the slab? I thought there was a higher, a bigger difference in the contours there, but it looks like it's only about a foot difference here.
The finished floor elevation of the existing slab and the proposed slab is going to be elevation 344, and then the elevations behind the building are about 342 and a half.
Okay.
Directly behind the building, the proposed building, and then off to the side, we're about 343. So
Okay. So it's pretty level.
we're pretty close. We're not way up out of the air. We're pretty close to that, and that's again basically to maintain flush surface with the driveway rather than picking it up so high. And there were, I think 42 abutters that were notified of the application. And there's how many are online, but they were all notified of the application in accordance with your requirements. So.
Has anybody contacted you in response to that?
They wouldn't contact him, they would contact me, and they have.
They have?
They have,
How many homeowners did you hear from?
several.
Were the responses favorable to the application or concerning?
Concerning.
Say it again?
Concerning.
Ah, okay. Did any of them indicate that they would be willing to appear to talk about any of that?
I didn't ask them that, they just wanted, they
Did they
had
tell
my
you?
number, they called. I told them the plans were available online. They could come in the office and look at them, and
one more question. Were there objections voiced to you, wetland or watercourse in nature?
Yes.
All right, then, I guess, do you have anything else you want to say before we start talking about things? So even though this isn't a public hearing, what we typically do at our public meetings, if there's anyone in the audience who wants to speak about the application, we usually allow that, even though it's typically a public hearing function. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak on this?
I was just curious.
Well, yeah, you
what
got,
is the-
Keon, you gotta come out and sign in, so.
How you doing? Keon
Good.
Bakhtiari,
Yep.
you remember me.
Yep.
Longtime member of the community. What was the building that they want? They said a community building?
Oh, that's for the old firehouse. It's
So they want to
pretty-
redo
This
the,
site
this is a different
This is just a
project.
storage shed for the firehouse that
Okay.
we're talking about
across the
now.
street from the building you're inquiring about.
Okay, so what are they spending $2 million on?
The renovation of the old firehouse.
The old firehouse to keep,
for
just to
some use.
renovate it
Yeah.
as a storage?
That's
No.
what we've been told.
No, that would
No.
be the building that
community
would have
space.
a community space,
Okay.
meeting rooms, a cafe, that kind of stuff.
Okay,
And that's a grant that the town's received to renovate that building,
okay.
which basically now is just used for storage at the fire, for the
But just
fire.
to close the loop on it, yeah, so that building that you're inquiring about contains equipment that is intended to go into the new space that's the subject of this application
Okay,
at a different site across the street.
okay, I understand now. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm, Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or want to talk about it? Okay. All right, so what we have to decide then is, do we just continue this in the public meeting format, or do we do a public hearing format? Really won't make a whole lot of difference as far as timing goes, depending on how, what we hear in a public hearing context versus, we can't decide this tonight anyway, no matter what, because it involves activity in the wetlands. So if we do schedule it for a public hearing for next month, unfortunately, they'll have to come back and sort of do their presentations over. Some discussion could be submitted by written submission, so Beth doesn't necessarily need to have to come back. But it really won't slow the process down, but it'll give the public a more, normal way of responding or voicing any concerns or questions or support. And if Chris has said that she's had a number of calls on this, based on public interest, we could have set it for a public hearing. Plus there's, filling of wetlands and creation of new wetlands, so it's may not be a huge activity, but it's relatively significant. So anyway, for a couple of reasons that we could shift it to a public hearing concept, not slow the process down, but just be sure everybody has an opportunity to speak, who wants to speak, who may have an interest. So, said my piece, so what do you folks think?
I think those are two important points you made, though, Mr. Chair, is that, legally, we may be duty-bound to have a public hearing, but it's refreshing on behalf of the town, perhaps the applicant, to hear that that won't delay proceedings or an eventual decision on the matter.
And the other thing too is, even though Don does an excellent job on this stuff, I'd like to have Jim just take a quick look at it too. Just from, if there's any comments he has, or a consulting engineer, to take a look at it and just comment on the application. It's complete. Jen's report looks very good, but Jim Preddy might have some comments or, things that he may want to discuss.
I would suggest that you also have your own biologist or whoever review it, because at this point you have one expert, and you only have a choice of accepting one expert's opinion. If you have your own expert and they concur, then you have two experts, especially given that you have public concern, and then that way it looks to everyone that you're doing what you should be doing, which is having a review that's unbiased in terms of just a neutral review.
And somebody could probably get that done within the month also, I
We
would
could
think. so.
ask, Martin Brogy, who was here,
Yeah, he was here a couple months ago.
and
Yeah,
ask if he could do it.
yeah, okay, all right. I think
I
that
mean,
makes
it's
sense.
not a huge area to review.
No, it's
something-
very, fairly concise area to take a
I
look
mean,
at.
I think it would be more the mitigation plan itself and whatnot. The only other question I have as staff is, are you deeming this to be a significant activity or not? Because if it is, then they also are duty bound to provide
Feasible,
feasible
prudent
prudent
alternatives.
alternatives, which we have not heard anything of.
I'm not, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't personally think it's a significant activity, only because, you know, we're filling, when we built the firehouse, we filled that isolated wetlands area in the middle to begin with, and here, we're losing 1,600 square feet of wetlands and replacing with 1,700 square feet of wetlands, you know, in round numbers.
In roughly the same.
And it's the headwater of, you know, basically of this whole wetland system, which is huge, you know, so but that's just my personal opinion. I'm happy to hear other people, so.
What we have is a good mitigation plan for creating the new one, and it's a relatively small portion of a very large area.
You don't have to convince me. I'm just,
No, we appreciate you setting it out, you know, reminding us of what we need to deal with, so. But I don't, other people's opinions, you know, count, so.
I don't see we're having a public
A
hearing.
public hearing makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely think a public hearing.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
data-filled process.
Yeah, I think we're all agreed the public hearing makes sense. It's just whether we consider this a significant activity or not. And if this were the only wetland area on the property, I would probably go that way, but it's part of a huge system, and we're creating, compensating, you know, wetland area, but,
Part
Just
of the
my
area
opinion.
is already disturbed anyway.
right. Any other,
I don't think of it as a huge change to the wetlands. Whether it's shaped like this or like that, doesn't make much difference to the wetlands, particularly near the top of the wetlands.
well, and the other thing too, when I went out to the site, I mean, the existing wetlands that are gonna be filled are almost cut off from the other area at this point, and by creating the
Right, this will
mitigation
open it up.
area, you open it up, and and it's, you know, it'll also, if you notice on the map too, where the swale from the field, the cornfields comes in, it'll open up that area there a little bit more, so
Yeah,
it may,
noticed that, yeah.
yeah, so anyway, that's. Stephen?
Well, you know, so I'm not sure I'm not sure it really changes things, whether we have a public hearing as a result of a significant impact, or we have a public hearing as a result of a public interest in the application, because our regulations, in my opinion, require every applicant to produce or state whether there are any alternatives to the development proposal. So I think it's a distinction without a difference because of the way our regulations are written. Our regulations say in the every application must contain 1 through 9, and I forget the specific subsection I have mentioned this before aloud. Every single application must contain, to be considered a complete application, a reasonable alternative, and if there is none, it ought to state so. So I think it's a distinction without a difference, because in any event, we ought to be informed of whether or not there's an alternative. And if there isn't, then there isn't. But we should hear that language every single application, and it doesn't change things here. To the extent that we've already concluded that the matter deserves a public hearing, I don't think it really matters whether it's because of a public interest or a significant activity, because as I said, according to my interpretation of the regs, the applicant still needs to set forth a alternative, or that there is no alternative.
Yeah, well, I mean, we differ a little bit on how we, how we interpret that provision, but, I guess here, since we're adding on to an existing pad, the alternatives would be go back or go to the right of it. So therefore, I guess that's an easy alternatives analysis that can be, presented just to cover that issue and not have to
That's
just
really all
debate
that's
it.
required, is whether, I don't want to say lip service to that requirement in our regulations, but we deserve it. There's no reason why the commission shouldn't be informed of alternatives to the development proposal. And as I said, there are instances where there are no alternatives, and that should be stated, if there are none.
I think the applicant can deal with that issue just to make you feel better.
Every
about
day,
that, so.
every applicant ought to be able to do that.
All right, so now, after any other discussion on this, we might as well make a decision on these couple issues that,
I think in the public interest, we should have a public hearing.
okay. I think everybody sort of come around to that opinion, so. All right, so do we have a motion to move this matter to a public hearing context at our next meeting in February? Josh moved, Jack seconded, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions, okay. So what we'll do is we'll sort of do a replay of this next month, in a public hearing context. But it shouldn't, unless there's a lot of issues that come up, it shouldn't make the process elongated any more than necessary, so, okay.
Dawn, could you send me one more set? Well, I have to send it off to 2 experts, so.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll continue this next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want one of ours?
Save a tree gap. I didn't see it yet.
Whatever you want to do.
Sure. It gets lost in my car anyway, so.
And you don't have to give me one,
We have
they're
one in the
kindly
file.
donating one of these.
Oh, Chris has the file, so I haven't even, so. Anything else you want to give up your report?
No, I only need,
You
I
want-
have one, I just need one more so that
Okay,
Brogy gets one and Jim Creedy gets one.
okay.
Because
I'll give it
otherwise,
before I leave.
no, otherwise they're printing it on their own dime and that's not fair to them.
Yeah.
No, they're giving me a set. No. They-
While
they
we're still
decided
here
to
and
give
talking
me
about
their
this,
sets.
I'd just like to note on the topic of the alternatives. So according to our regulations, under section 7.5F, this is just every single application, whether it's subject to a public hearing or because of public interest or because of significant activity, every single application shall include the following information in writing or on maps or drawings, and I'll read subparagraph F. Alternative, which would cause less or no environmental impact to wetlands or watercourses, and why the alternative as set forth in the application was chosen. All such alternatives shall be diagrammed on a site plan or drawing. So that's just, again, that's every single application needs to be measured by this metric. And then there's the separate legal matter, which I think is really a distinction without a difference here, because we always require, our regs, I just read it, we always require that an applicant set forth an alternative. And if there aren't, whether it's move it 1 inch, whether, well, we can actually put it upland, or whether there's no alternative to the proposed development, that's all fine, but I believe
I'll look at that again.
to be scrutinous, we really should be seeing that stuff in all our apps.
Okay,
But the difference with a significant activity is that you cannot approve it unless you find that there is not an alternative.
I'm aware of that, that's a
So
separate
that-
discussion.
And that is why I raised the question, because there is a great distance between what you just read and what a significant activity is. And you cannot say that they're the same, because they are not.
No, what I'm saying, don't
I'm
misunderstand
not
me. My only point is that our regs say that every application needs to contain a statement about a depiction of an alternative or that there isn't an alternative.
okay, all right.
Anyway,
All right, thank you.
At this point of order, so
Yep.
is the public hearing being held in public interest or because it's a significant impact? Just so I can,
We didn't
They've said
determine
interest.
that.
Public
they have
interest.
said interest.
Yeah, public interest, yeah.
public interest.
That's what Josh said.
And you have an obligation to send out a notice again to all those neighbors that there is now a public hearing. That falls on the applicant.
We have the certificate of mailing down at the.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
but you have to do it again.
All right.
No problem, and I'll coordinate with Christine on sending that notice
Okay,
out.
all right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have
have a
a
good
good
evening, yep. All right, moving right along to old business. 10 South Bradley Road, Keon, run up.
You're only paying customer tonight, yeah.
Well, you've already paid, you used your money, unless you want to pay again this month, so anyway. But we appreciate it. So you know, a number of us went down, took a look at, the situation down there. And, you know, Stephen was nice enough to actually bring some pictures, take some pictures and send them to us today.
Uh-huh.
I think the only concern I had, and I think, maybe some other people had it too, was, you know, the river is very narrow at that point. I'm just concerned that when you remove the trees and the debris and put the riprap in, that doesn't further narrow
Yep.
the river. I'd rather see.
Very valid concern.
I'd rather see you pull some of the dirt up top and then, you know, maybe, even though we probably shouldn't be doing it that way, make it a little bit wider at that point when you had the riprap.
Okay.
But that was sort of my only concern when I took a look at things down there. But other people have other comments probably, so.
So, can I respond to that, or do you want to?
Oh, okay, yeah, why don't you respond? to that?
I mean, my only concern, again, as an engineer, is just disturbing that riverbank. I mean,
Oh.
maybe if we take off the topsoil, but I
Well,
don't know if you
I'm
want me to
sorry.
actually cut back.
I shouldn't have phrased it that way. You know, there's a lot of like just dead branches.
Well, that's
all that
going to
kind
all be cleaned up.
so all that's gonna be
That's
pulled
a
up
part
and
of
then
this whole project. So all those dead branches you saw were from the dead trees that I mentioned before
We're gonna
falling
take
on my
them.
roof.
Yeah.
I actually got all those off of my roof that created all the holes on my roof.
Mm-hmm.
I just threw them down there for now, you know, while I was up there cutting, that when I have the tree guys come in, they're going to actually clean that all up.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so
okay.
all that would be cleaned up.
Then to clarify what I was saying, as long as it doesn't further encroach into the river when
No,
you
no,
put the riprap.
No, because I know how important that would be, and I definitely would not do that.
Gina and Stephen, I know you were down there too, so.
Yeah. What was the length of the installation?
I can look it up for you. I don't know at the top of my head, but it's basically just the whole property line that faces. What would probably be the west? You said 30 feet? No, it's much more. It's probably about. I could look it up. I'd have to look at the GIS and measure it on the GIS, but it's the whole property line. It's from there all the way down there. Yeah, I would say that's about 300 feet, probably. Yeah, 250 somewhere around there.
When the riprap gets installed,
Hmm.
in my mind, I guess I thought it would be on sort of a slant like this.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be much more steep?
No, no, I'm
Since
not.
it's a slant like this, it's gonna stick out like
Well, no. So it would be.
the triangular shape that it creates would have the base of it and it would have to be several feet.
Well, we're pretty much just lining just what is existing.
Yeah.
I'm not going any more into the actual water.
Yeah,
We're gonna put a
that's-
silt-up fence first. I talked to Warren. Warren should have sent you the scope of work that you requested. I don't know if he sent you that, but
Okay.
I did tell him to send that to you.
It just seems
But-
that area is so sensitive to, and subject to flooding that
It is.
anything that blocks the flow of water could aggravate the situation, but.
Well, so so the point of this is to stabilize that bank
Yeah.
because of how much is washing out. I don't know if you went all the way to the back to where my parking lot starts.
I
If
was
you were
inside
able
the-
to make it
I was
around.
inside the fence,
Oh,
yeah.
you're inside the fence. I mean, you can see how much it actually comes up, because it's just clearly visible how much it's washed away.
Okay, yeah.
It's really, and it's a good concern that he just brought up on the last thing is about a alternative. I mean, there really is no alternative here. Couldn't even think of an alternative plan. I have videos I could show you of the water coming right up to my foundation, and that's really my biggest concern there. So we're not extending any land. All we're doing is really just holding the land. And what this natural material would do is actually kind of, as Ms. Sullivan said last time, kind of catch that water, amongst the porousness of the rock, and
They
so it
slow
wouldn't.
down, yeah.
Yeah, and then it would fill up over time, it would wash in there, and that would actually even more so strengthen once, dirt from the water and everything fills in amongst those rocks, and it kind of just strengthens that waterbed. If you've looked when, I actually just noticed this, I was down there with the tree guys looking over there, and there was an old retaining wall, whoever built the building originally, and that retaining wall is just cracked, and it's I mean, it's almost falling into the river.
Yeah. it's
And you
undercut.
think of what's going on with the retaining wall. Now think once it goes, it's especially with the way weather has been in the past decade. I mean, as you may know, in my lifetime, I'm 31 years old as of tomorrow. And in my lifetime, I've seen that bridge flooded 3 times, like over the bridge. My neighbor had water up to her knee, in that in the Abel's Catering building next to us. So again, my father's biggest concern, as someone has many years of engineering experience, is his biggest concern is the damage that could do to our building, especially because we are stone wholesale. You know how much weight we have on our concrete. And if that building, so I already have some settling cracks throughout my building. I've had to fix a bunch of them, and spaces happening between like my loading dock. I had a gap this big from the building settling over the years that I had filled recently. We're already seeing effects of it. I had to rebuild parts of the parking lot. I'm actually probably going to have to repave it after all this, as a part of this whole project with Warren. It's a very big concern to us. And now that we know we're not most likely never going to move out of this building, because there was an option to either, we tried to purchase the old Abel's Catering building, that didn't work out for us. We were going to move to a property that we own in Oxford and build there. We ended up not doing that either. We pretty much know we're going to be here for the rest of our lives. My sister and I, hopefully my parents are alive for a long time, but my sister and I are here forever, and we need to make sure we save this building as much as we can. That's really our biggest concern. So, and as you probably saw the trees. I mean, how many of those trees are dead? It's so obvious just looking at them. I hope you took notice of that. That's also a big concern of mine, not only for our building, but my neighbors' buildings. That's, I don't need a tree falling on theirs and then that creating another issue, As you might have seen, there's already trees that have fallen on my fence as well. It's just it's something that I think really needs to be done. The trees really need to be done really any day, because any day they can fall. In terms of lining that building, we would want to do it as soon as possible. But yeah.
You have comments?
Yeah, thanks. I'm disappointed in your plan.
Okay.
So I tried to see what was going on out there, and I couldn't get access to the area because it's fenced off and locked off. I even went up to your neighbor to the south
Today,
to try
yeah.
to work around, but it's
This was today,
it's so
correct?
thick that one could not see really what's going on the water side, the river side of your property.
Well, if you remember.
Just a second.
Yeah,
So I did take some pictures.
Yes.
The best we could do, the best anyone I think could do, because you can't even reach around the corner to take a picture. So frankly, the conditions on the riverside of your property are unknown, because I couldn't see them because I couldn't get access to that area. But what I could tell was it's very narrow there. I don't know how there's going to be equipment there to bring the stone, the riprap that you're talking about. There's no analysis of how you're going to do that, or what kind of, whether there's going to be any consequence to the wetland and water course. So, number one, the access, I think, is a problem, because it's going to be hard for us to consider your application if we really don't know and see what's going on there. It looks like it's cleared, so you are walking along the river, but none of us as commissioners can see what's going on there. So I would encourage you, I might encourage us all to maybe take another look once we can get access to that area. So that's number one. Let me just go through my laundry list of things. You want to make a note so you
Can I
can come
address?
back?
Okay, if I could just address that, and
Okay.
then we can go to the next thing, please. That was why last time I did say, I could meet you there, and today I did see when you were there,
I saw you.
and I wish you stopped and talked to me, because there's the road on the right side of you can get right behind there. I mean, it's very easy to access that area. If I knew you were there, or I could have brought you around. In terms of accessing that area with machinery, what I'm gonna end up doing, so you probably saw that row of slabs that are on that riverside. I'm actually gonna be moving all that out, I'm gonna rip out that old fence that's there, and that's how we're gonna access that whole area.
Okay, that's all the kind
Yeah.
of stuff that I would expect to see in an application.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's all right, you know, you can't know, so, now you're it's just, a general matter is, so you're you know, because it's hard to see what you're really gonna be doing, without any engineered plan or anything like that, it's hard for me to determine that once you harden your space against the water, that you're not gonna create a problem for a downstream landowner. So, I don't know what the dimension of the river channel's gonna be when you're done. I don't know what it is right now. That's again something I might expect to find in an engineered plan so that we can make sure. It's really kind of an issue because the West River's a big deal.
Well, if I can interrupt, I mean, what we could do in a decision on this is stipulate that, you know, the width of the river can't be impacted, and that, you know, whatever riprap is added can't, you know, encroach upon the river
Certainly, but
itself,
we
you know.
need that kind of baseline information, which we don't have. I mean, unless, you know, I mean, are we supposed to walk across the river with a tape measure and determine that it's 22 feet right now? And so, you know, we don't even know that. We don't know what you're starting at, so we won't know when you complete your project where it's going to be in the end. And so I think that's a big deal. I think that's, you know, that is an issue. So basically, your plans are a little too informal, I think, for me to consider such a significant impact to the wetland and watercourse where you're going to be excavating right
Yeah, I mean,
up to, just a moment, where you're going to be excavating right up to the surface waters. So that's kind of a concern. I'd like to see better plans. So, and I may be alone in that. Commissioners don't have to agree with me. So I make those general points. You know, it's funny, I kind of amused myself at the thought that the plan that the Boy Scout prepared for his footbridge, I thought may have had greater detail than the plan I see here for work directly adjacent to the West River. So I think that's a shortcoming in the application, and I'm not going to be able to really decide whether or not to approve this unless I think I see more engineered aspects to your application. So, and you know, finally, you have a lot of garbage in your parking lot. Let me finish. That's styrofoam and other things, small pieces. I see they're getting into the watercourse. So, if your employees could do a better job of hitting the dumpster with that stuff, or if it's out of the dumpster, putting it back in, because it's kind of a mess there. And if it wasn't so easily transmissible into the watercourse, not that I wouldn't have mentioned it, but that's a concern too.
so as I mentioned last time, this is a part of a very large cleanup that we're doing to address all this broken stone, this whole area. A lot of that you see is, I mean, my employees get it in the dumpster, but we've had very windy days, as you know, and they blow out of the dumpster. But this is a part of, all this will be cleaned up. I mean, I apologize if you've seen, you know, stuff blowing out of the dumpster and getting
But
towards
what's
the
it blowing out
waterway.
of the dumpster? It was styrofoam. It's like packing material.
Yeah,
So
it
I guess
blo-
your stone.
That blows out of it's very light material, styrofoam, and it blows out of the dumpster. Now, that still blows. Big chunks blow. And I apologize.
There should be
Well,
measures to make sure that that's not happening.
I will
Whether
try
we
my
close
best
the
to do
dumpster,
that.
and close it. I'm not trying to create difficulties for
Mm-hmm.
you, but you know that's you own and manage a property right next to
Mm-hmm.
a water course and a significant resource.
So as I stated before, this is a part of, the whole plan is to clean up this whole area. That's my whole goal with this, to make it cleaner, to make it look nicer. You know, we've been there many years, and now in terms of what you were saying about the engineering, I mean, I did give you a proper engineering sketch. I know it wasn't a full report.
Just a
I
sketch.
guess we didn't see this
This one here?
as, Yes. That's an actual engineering sketch, but because this is not such a vast impacting job, we're not doing any construction, it's a very simple thing we're doing. So I'm sorry if that wasn't adequate for you. If you want, I can try to see what else I can make for you. But everything we're doing really is in that sketch. We're just bringing some riprap, placing it right along the existing river. As I said before, we're not going into the river at all. And however you want me to,
But you are, I mean, so I'm looking at your engineered design, I mean, you have riprap, and it looks like the riprap continues below the water line, so, again, just, you know, there's some red flags here, and I'm not gonna be able to get past the fact that I think that this is just too informal a proposal.
okay?
My commissioners may not agree. So principally, I'd like to get back on the property so we can see what it looks like, because that would only help you
Yeah.
if we
Please
can get
let-
access to that area.
please
And
let
number
me
two,
know
I'd
when
like
you
to
do.
see a little more detail
Yeah.
in your proposal.
Yeah, please let me know when you would like to, so I could actually be there with you, so I could bring you in. Because you absolutely can get access, you just have to go the other side of the building, not the side that you were on today.
I mean, would it make sense to just schedule a formal site visit, and that way, anybody who has any questions, you know, from my perspective, I don't think I need, the site visit would probably be enough for me, and we don't need anything more as far as drawings, from just my personal opinion. But I think everybody going down to the site who wants to go down, and if we have access to around the back, then I think that'll answer a lot of the questions that people have. So,
Okay.
Would it make any sense for our engineer to go out there and take a look at it?
I'm sorry, Jack, what did you just say?
To have our engineer go out and,
Truly, truly, that's really where, that's kind of where we're going with this. As I said, if this were a wetland somewhere else in town, but this is the West River.
Is the West River subject to any other regulatory oversight?
No,
No.
it's you.
it's not in the, it's not,
So it falls on us.
It falls on you,
Because
but
there's
tip,
been, you know, the work done around Pond Lily,
Mhm.
Lily Pond.
well,
and-
it
Take it
depends
down
on
that
the
dam?
scope of the work.
Okay.
If you, that went through
That was a big-
deep,
That was deep, yeah, that was a dam removal.
because they removed a dam
right.
and a fishway. And now they're talking about removing the shallow dam that's up in Knoll's Pond and doing other work up there, but that's being done, to the best of my knowledge, under the auspices of DEEP, because they're in control of dams no matter what size they are. But what I was gonna say was, generally, you don't have your engineer design something. You react to something, so I could show him the plan, but he normally isn't gonna design it, because then,
We're not asking him, we wouldn't even think to ask him to design this for the applicant.
I'm just
Because wasn't there,
making-
did you say Warren put together a scope of work?
I
haven't
had
seen it.
approached him to do so after the board's request, and I'm sorry if he did not, and I will go tell him that he should. Yeah, I mean, something I'd like to bring up, I guess. I guess it might not be relevant, but my neighbor on the other side, some years ago, had built their wall there without any approval of anybody, and we had complained many times. This is when Terry was still alive, and that is actually also negatively impacted by pushing the water to our side as well.
So you understand how we could have the same kind of concerns with the project at hand
Well, I
here.
understand, but I need to protect myself, and nothing was done to this gentleman, though we complained many times. So
Right,
I
but you
need to
can't-
protect my
You're not suggesting
building.
that, you know, he kind of got away with that, you should get away.
No, I'm not, but I'm letting you know that what this man had done is now impacting my side of the river as well.
Well, I think
It's
if,
upstream or downstream?
It's right across the street from me.
Oh, across
Yeah,
the
it's all on file. We've made many complaints about it, and
Yeah, that's a
It-
good kind of- Thank you.
all right, well, what are people's preferences as far as going down there and taking a look, and especially before I mean, we may not get any snow this winter at all, but we might, probably should do it sooner than later, so, I don't know, what's a good time for you to
I'm
be
there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But I can be there any other time, but it gets dark
Well,
after 5, so you probably wouldn't want.
Yeah.
I can
mean,
meet you on a
maybe-
weekend as well,
Maybe the
sorry.
end of the day, one of the work days, or would you rather do it on the
We have to
weekend?
do it
Well, again, we have
before.
to see.
Before,
Sure,
yeah,
there's lots of
before,
light.
yeah,
Gotta be able to
You
see.
need light, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's getting lighter every day.
yeah. Yeah, if we wait another 30 days, we'll have 30 more minutes. So anyway,
Yeah.
but we don't wanna wait that long.
Or at 8:30 in the morning, no?
Well, that's another option too.
That's another option. I could do that.
I don't know if you're gonna get down there with parking and
If I'm in this state.
Pardon me?
I'm kidding you about parking and traffic
Oh,
on Litchfield Turnpike in the morning.
that's true too. We
Yeah,
have to
that's
add
the
an
time
extra
not to
10
be
minutes
there.
for your trip there.
Just across Litchfield
Yeah.
Turnpike.
Would a morning be okay with you?
Whatever you need, I make it work.
Okay, because I think that'll help solve all
That's
this.
fine. I think so
Get
too.
behind
I
us,
think
so,
that's what
yeah.
we, because when you see it, I think you'll understand that I don't think it's to the scope that you're thinking it is, and you'll also see the detriment that it's causing. My only thing is the trees. Is this something that I need to get these trees taken care of? It's just, they're causing a danger to my building and my neighbors. And also I have availability for my tree guy now that it's slow. And he's kind of been on me also about getting him in there, and I said, I'm at the mercy of the board. Is there a concern with the trees?
Well, dead trees, we usually never have a concern about removing, but you want to basically do it all at once and clean it all
Yeah,
up.
I would
So-
tell you 80% of it's dead.
Mhm.
I mean, you can see it from the street. You just look up and you look at the branches, they're dead trees.
Mhm.
But again, if
The
we,
trees need to be done before the,
yes,
Yeah.
before this happens,
and it's
yes.
a different contractor,
Yes.
yeah, so.
I'm inclined to let them do the trees,
Without
from
any-
a safety
oh.
standpoint, a dead tree standpoint. We usually don't hold people up for that kind of thing.
But we don't need to put a silk fence up or anything for
He's-
that?
he was
I will
gonna
be-
leave
The stumps.
in place.
Right.
I'm gonna leave the stumps, but
So
I
it's just-
actually,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
going to put a silt fence up anyways, just to be proper, to do it properly, we were gonna put a silt fence
So,
up.
why- why don't we,
Let's see it.
go out there early next week? I mean, maybe we could do, if people can't make it early in the morning, have another group that, the rest of the people can talk to him directly and make an appointment to, when he's there, to go out there and see it. And then, as long as, even though it won't be a formal decision, like I said, dead trees and safety things are something that we typically let people do anyway, and we may be able to just say, okay, yeah, get rid of the trees. I don't know, what's everybody think about that?
Yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
sounds like a good idea.
Okay, all right, so,
I mean,
wh-
the
what-
way they do trees these days, they don't even drop, they drop everything straight down. It's
Yeah.
very-
Yeah.
We're gonna be
Yeah.
bringing a crane in, we're gonna be
Yeah.
really careful. That was actually our main concern, of making sure we do it safely,
Yeah.
and paying the extra money, bring a crane in, bring them,
he has enough
rope 'em
holes in his
down.
roof anyway, so he
Yeah.
doesn't need any more, so.
yeah, that's the other thing.
I mean, personally, digging in silt fence at this time of year is not a good idea,
Okay,
because it's disturbing soil, which is not going to restabilize. You're dropping trees, it's just gonna potentially drop on it.
yeah.
Normally, when you clear trees, you put your erosion controls up after.
Afterwards, yeah. So you could save the silt fence
Yeah.
expense at this point,
As
spending
long
on
as
your
you leave
trees.
as long as
So,
they've got
we're
the crane
gonna
in
see
there
this before
and
he
they're
cuts anything,
removing
right?
the stuff
Yeah.
I
by
was thinking,
hand.
maybe
Everything
Tuesday
will be
morning or something like
removed.
that, and whoever can make it on Tuesday morning, then we'll have this.
We should site inspect before the tree cutting.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll try to get there on Tuesday morning.
Tuesday
I'm
morning.
thinking, and if whoever wants to make it then,
Okay.
and then if somebody,
30?
is that good?
I just had to bring my dog into surgery on Tuesday, but yeah, sorry. I mean, I can see maybe if my father can come.
Well, no, let's,
Monday doesn't work?
Now, you don't even need to be there. If you have an employee, just unlock that gate.
Oh, you don't need, okay, but you don't even need to get through the gate, is what I'm saying, is if you go if you're looking at
Don't
the
go into your
building,
lot.
there's a access road that I get my machine out to the side overhead doorway in between my adjacent building, the old Abel's Catering. That little road right there next to my parking lot. You just walk right around there and you can access the whole thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you'll be able to access the whole thing, but I can see,
Well, was Wednesday better, or what?
Wednesday would be
Wednesday?
better, yes, sorry.
Okay,
I
yeah.
have to bring my dog to surgery.
Okay, yeah, yeah, no, we'll do Wednesday morning
Okay.
at 8:30, is that what we're talking about? Okay, and then I don't see, we just wanna take a look before you start cutting the trees, so if you get the tree guy lined up for after that,
I'm confident that once you see with your eyes, I think we would be on the same page.
all right.
And then
Okay.
if you can have Warren,
I'm gonna reach out to Warren again.
Yeah,
and
just to
I-
have him put something together.
I
as far as-
apologize that that didn't happen. I did make sure I went to him.
I understand.
We all get busy, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that, smartly, that we should probably have our engineer look at the proposal. Do we want to give him the application now so that we can keep the applicant on some track, or, I mean, I'd like to see more engineered plans, and,
Well,
but no
I-
matter what, we should have our engineer look at what the applicant is proposing, even if it's just this. I mean, so that's what the application is.
Well, I'm not, I mean, I haven't had a situation that I recall where the applicant has to do off-site measurements, basically. Like, okay, the river's 22 feet here, it has to be 22 feet later. He really doesn't have a right to go on other people's property and do
Right.
things like in that regard. But I think if we, Chris has probably been down there, if we stipulate in whatever approval we give later that they cannot encroach further into the river, we'll have to visually inspect it and just be comfortable with it. I don't know, is that something?
I can go down
Yeah.
with you, we have
So
tapes,
so
we
you're
can measure.
suggesting no,
I mean, we could even meet
no
Warren
engineering
there.
review on our
You
end?
know Warren, I mean,
Do you think it'll help to have Jim take a look at this?
I honestly don't know what his availability is because he's very, very, very busy.
Oh, I know, I trust me.
I mean, I
know
can
that.
ask.
What are we doing
Yeah.
here anyways?
They're all busy.
Yeah, I know,
I don't know what they're doing, but they're all busy.
yeah.
Mr. Sosensky, that's it. Can you just elaborate for me what else you are looking for in your engineering report? What else would you like to see other than the cross-section that we
Yeah,
made?
I appreciate your asking that. Again, I'm not here to try to give you a problem.
No.
We obviously recognize the importance of economic development and the commercial base in our town. It's unquestionable. But I'm not an engineer, but I do see plenty of engineered plans on projects that don't involve such significant activities. And so that's probably a question for an engineer, is how would you prepare a plan for the project I have in mind?
Yeah,
And I
well,
guess that's how that
I'll bring
relationship
that
would
up
start.
to my father. He is a PE, and I'll mention that to him because I guess the impression we had, this was just a simple, I mean, that drawing really does describe everything we're doing, but I'll bring that up to him and see if he knows anything else that
Right.
maybe he
But,
can add
the
to
drawing
it.
itself is concerning because, as even you said that you're not going in the water, but the drawing depicts riprap being placed below the water line.
It goes, I mean, you can't, yes, a little bit
That's-
within some feet.
That's what a
It-
plan
it
would
has
tell
to,
us, and that's
yeah.
what we would know what to expect, and that's
Yeah.
how we would know at the end of the day when the project's done, it was done
Yeah.
correctly.
I mean, the stone couldn't float there. Like, it does have to line into it, yes. Yes, it would have to line down and sit on the ground, yes.
Okay, so
Site
So,
visit, yeah.
site visit next Wednesday morning. If somebody can't make it,
Right,
he'll make himself available
I will
to
make myself
let you
available.
in, or you could go around the right-hand side of the building and take a look back there.
I'll be there, don't
Um,
worry. I'll make sure.
I would like to be able to give him direction after we go there regarding, to confirm that he can remove the dead trees and the trees that are, endangering the building and all that kind of stuff. So sort of keep that in mind when we go there, that, we kind of reach a result on that part at least, so.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Thank you.
So I'll see you Wednesday, 8:30.
Yeah, Wednesday,
Okay,
8:30.
I'll let him know. and then I will go speak to my father about possibly getting you something more comprehensive. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And
Happy
bug
New Year.
Warren about
Yep, Happy
getting
New Year.
something.
I'm sorry?
And bug Warren about getting something together, sales proposal.
I'm quite embarrassed that that didn't happen.
No, no,
Sorry.
no, you're responsible for your own actions, not
Yeah,
other people's, so.
I did tell him. Yeah, I'm gonna, well, I don't, he's a big guy.
All right,
He has gotten softer in his older age.
all right, thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay, moving right along. Any correspondence or anything we need to deal with?
No.
No, okay. How about site enforcement activities?
I did get an email today from someone from the land trust regarding the Wolf Tree property, in terms of where it sits, and I've talked to David Lord several times, but haven't gotten anything in writing back from him. The last I talked to him, the plants were there, they were gonna get planted, but I haven't heard anything from him, so, this came at the end of the day today, so I'm going to actually, I already did email him. So I emailed him and Attorney Pellegrino and John Paul, because the three questions basically that they had was from the land trust, were there any monuments that were going to be installed? And I couldn't recall that that was a part of anything, that
We didn't
any
require
monuments.
that,
But I
right.
didn't know if in discussion between Attorney Pellegrino and the land trust, when they were agreeing to let the work be done, if anything was supposed to be installed. So that's why I included him in the email. And then I asked, can we have a report? And he asked, the fellow from the land trust asked if he could be on the final site inspection, and I explained that there really, in a sense, right now isn't a final site inspection, because once the plants are in, then there's that 3-year review
Yeah.
period of, and the 80% survival rate and replacing as necessary and whatnot. And what else was there? So there, and then I reminded Attorney Pellegrino that if the plants are now in, we need that bond to ensure that they will be replaced as necessary. So, I did send that off before I left today, earlier today, and so I haven't heard anything back, but they probably were gone for the day, so as soon as I hear something, I will let you know.
Okay. And that property on Ansonia Road, that we were waiting for some kind of.
David
report.
Lord's involved in that one, and if I haven't heard anything back, and I've also asked him when I've been talking to him about that one, and I haven't, he's been out there, he's doing the
Okay.
plan, but,
And
so I
we'll
will
get
bug him on
Brogy,
both.
we'll get Brogy to review the firehouse.
And I'll
things,
have
right?
Brogy review the fire department,
Okay.
and then you want Jim to review that too.
I think he should look at it. I don't think there's really much he can do
I
or say
have it
about
in a
it, so.
PDF form, so I can send him the PDF. I'll also, as a courtesy, send him
Yeah.
the hard copy, just because I think it's easier for him to be able to look at a plan rather than
I
a
guess
screen.
one of the things that he may want to look at is like what they're doing with roof drains, or where's that going, is,
The last I knew, it was all supposed to tie into the storm drainage system that's in the parking lot.
okay.
Because when the original firehouse was done, that had that turbo conductor to keep sediment and silt out, and then it goes through, having an oil separator and all that. And when I talked to them in the field, they said that they were gonna do that.
Yeah. I didn't notice in the plans, but I didn't look
notice
for
it on
that
the
angle
plans
either, but.
So I'll ask him that question.
Yeah, basically,
also.
I'm just concerned about drainage, that's created from the extra impervious surface on the, firehouse site there,
Yeah.
based on this.
But I believe he said that he thought it could handle it, so I will double
Okay,
check.
all right.
And I'll also ask Donald on it too,
Mhm. Okay,
so he can address it.
all
in
right.
this meeting.
No other enforcement things going on, no problems?
Not from your end, no.
Okay. We don't want to know about anybody else's.
No, you don't.
Okay, we talked about site visits, there's no new ones other than for the South, 10 South Bradley Road.
And Jean has 80,000 corrections for me on that.
No, actually, Gene probably found something I couldn't, but anyway, and I looked,
Reinforce was spelled wrong.
oh, okay, all right.
And there was just a couple of things where the format didn't come out right, so it's all yours.
Did you catch, on page 2?
What?
There's a part of the sentence
Yeah, the PFAS section.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't read that one.
there's also, on page 1, where it starts off on a site map, the A should be capitalized.
Oh, Gene, oh yeah, Gene probably got that one. so. Okay. All right, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended by Gene?
It's a standing motion.
A standing motion, our usual motion. Who wants to move that
I'll
one?
make that motion.
Dave moved, we have a second. Jack seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Anything else we need to do?
No, you can go home.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn at 9 o'clock?
Also make
Jack made, moved, you have a second?
I'll second.
Stephen seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, we're done at 9 o'clock. One of our longer meetings lately,
Yeah.
so.
Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault, you got a lot to cover.